Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here, attending this wonderful convention amongst all our industry colleagues. And I'd like to extend a huge thank you to the event organizers and the lovely people of Rwanda for hosting us. OTT and the internet streaming services in Africa. We'd like to recognize the hurdles and try and overcome them. By a show of hands here, who has Netflix or Amazon subscriptions? I can assure you, if we had to ask that same question somewhere in Europe, you would have seen most of the room raise their hands. The reason for this being that the penetration into Africa hasn't been what was expected from these giant streaming companies. The reason behind this is Africa is not like the rest of the world. We are unique. We have our own set of challenges, and a lot of these streaming giants are finding it very difficult to overcome these challenges. Internet penetration in Africa is estimated at around 33.9%. We have around 700 million people in sub-Saharan Africa that do not have access to the internet. We have 270 million people that live outside of mobile coverage areas. So this in itself poses a huge issue. Not only do these people not have access to the internet, they live in areas that have no mobile broadband coverage. They are unable to access these services. OTT is slowly starting its penetration into Africa, but given the challenges that I've briefly highlighted, terrestrial infrastructure being one of them, coupled with cellular coverage and high data costs probably being the most significant one, linear content distribution retains the market share of current revenue, and it seems that it will for the foreseeable future. DTH and DTT are still the main vectors for linear content distribution at present, and as I said, will continue to be into the foreseeable future. DTH currently captures the majority of the pay TV subscribers at around 65% of the market, and a substantial part of the free TV market at around 44%. Now we're coming to mobile data costs in Africa. As you know, data, internet access is readily available in the rest of the world. When it comes to Africa, it's a little bit taboo. Not only are data costs significantly higher than the rest of the world, the coverage is once again a problem in a lot of areas. This next slide shows you and gives you an idea of what most of the countries in Africa are paying for 1 gigabyte of data in US dollars. When you look at these numbers, you'll see that the cheapest one there is Ghana at around 61 US cents, with the highest one being St. Helena at $41. This is for 1 gigabyte of data. If you are streaming content, 1 gig will probably be gone before you finish watching a movie. So how does that make it affordable for our people to access streaming content? And how do we overcome this challenge that poses a huge problem for subscribers in Africa to view this content that they so desperately would love to access? With these high data costs, not only must our subscribers pay for this data, they then have to pay the subscription to access the platforms too. Yes, there is free content, we know, but free content is not always the premium content that we would like to access. And the premium content is paid content. So when you are accessing that content, you're paying the premium to the streaming supplier, but you're also paying the premium that you need to use to access that content. So be it either your mobile terrestrial broadband or then your actual mobile cellular broadband. In Africa, terrestrial broadband hasn't had the reach into the rural areas that we would like to achieve. So a lot of these areas are still reliant on mobile broadband. Factoring these high data costs, it makes it not affordable for the average viewer in a home to access this content. So we understand the challenges. There are many. As I said, Africa is unique. We don't have the same challenges that other countries do or other continents do. We need to address these challenges and we need to find ways to overcome them. Almost 60% of Africa's population is under the age of 25, making that Africa the world's youngest continent. It's critical for content providers and TV platforms to have a deep understanding of their target audience. Content is king, and local content is in high demand. Would you like to see more local content on these major streaming platforms? Do you feel that they adequately supply the content that is what you would like to see, what your children would like to see? In my opinion, yes, they have some local content, but they don't have the content that we are actually looking for. And this is why they have also not penetrated the African market the same way that they have the rest of the world. So not only are there the challenges of connection and connectivity and data costs, etc., there's also the issue of content. We like our local content and we appreciate that content and we would like to be able to view it, but we would like to be able to view it at no cost, right? We don't want to pay to view content that is created in our countries, content that is so significant to us, even to our children when it comes to education. This content can be made available online, they can have access to it, and it can definitely enhance the future of education going forward into Africa as well. So we have considered now that with mobile data costs being as high as they are, we can look at a new solution. And the new solution is to actually deliver these services using satellite. So satellite still continues to be the best option for reaching millions of viewers with a single signal. Thanks to its expansive coverage and unsurpassed reliability, satellite enjoys the highest penetration of all content delivery technologies into TV households. By 2022, 80% of internet traffic will be video. You can receive live and on-demand high-quality content anytime, anywhere, on any device. Satellite is uniquely positioned to address new consumption models across all verticals. And with OTT delivered via satellite, you can reach audiences even in the most remote areas. So that eliminates terrestrial connectivity, it eliminates mobile broadband connectivity, and it eliminates the high data costs that our consumers are facing. So if you take a look at our satellite coverage beams, you'll see that if we deliver these services via satellite, it completely takes away all the issues. Well, not all the issues, but primarily most of the issues in terms of coverage and penetrating those hard to reach areas that have no other means of connectivity. We have a number of beams that cover Africa, and there are many satellites. I mean, this is just an example that I'm using with the Intelsat satellites that we use, but there are many satellite operators that have very good coverage and predominant access all over the African continent. So this is one of our KU band beams that we use quite actively in sub-Saharan Africa to deliver many TV services, not only OTT, but DTH services as well. We have beams that are more specific and focused, targeted in certain areas where we obviously, need to deliver better services. So I'm just going to run through these beams quickly so you can have a look. We have concentrated areas which look into Central and East Africa. And we have another KU-band spot beam into West Africa. So basically, the whole of Africa is covered. Just going to touch briefly on Ka-band. It's not really broadcast specific and probably not a service that I would necessarily use for broadcast, but it is one of the Liquid satellite product portfolios. So we'll just mention that as well, but it just gives you a nice view of the sort of reach you can have if you move satellite services over the continent as opposed to terrestrial or mobile services. To give you a little bit of statistics, the GSMA intelligence report showed that mobile phone subscribers stood at around 46% in sub-Saharan Africa, while the smartphone adoption was at around 64%. The data also revealed that mobile technologies and services contributed over $130 billion to the region's economy in 2021. The GSMA predicts that Africa will have 120 million new mobile subscribers by 2025, taking the total number of subscribers to 615 million. This is 50% of the continent's population. So we estimate that by 2025, 50% of the population will be a mobile subscriber. With some data that was released recently, also by the GSMA, that showed by the end of 2021, 5.3 billion people had subscribed to mobile services. This represents 67% of the entire global population. That is a lot of mobile subscriptions. So reading all this information, it really gives us an indication. The way that consumer demand is heading is definitely into the mobile space. People want to access content, they want to access it on their mobile devices. It's easy, it's convenient, you can access it anytime, anywhere, if you have the connection. So Nigeria boosted 199 million mobile connections as of the end of March this year, according to the country's Communication Commission. Their telephone connections per 100 people stood at 104.5% between January and March. So according to the GSMA, Nigeria tops Africa in smartphone connections with 163 million. That is very, very substantial. At number 2, we've got South Africa, where it indicated that 108.6 million cellular mobile connections were made in South Africa at the start of 2022, which is equivalent to 179.8% of its population. I mean, that's just insane. The internet penetration, on the other hand, only stood at 68.2%, with over 89 million smartphone users. So that tells you that even though the smartphone users are there, the internet penetration is still not making its way as it could. And the reasons behind that being connection, there isn't 3G coverage in all the areas, coupled with, once again, the high data costs. Kenya came in at number 4. They stood at 64.9 million, which was a drop actually for them from 65.1 million subscriptions that were recorded at the end of 2021. So they reckon that the subscriptions, the decline in the SIM subscriptions was partly attributed to the ongoing SIM registration exercise, during which a number of SIMs were deactivated. So it doesn't really appear that they actually lost subscribers, but it must have been a clearing up process, which saw a drop and quite a significant decline in the rates. So if we consider how we are going to overcome these hurdles, it's really important to have a look at the satellite coverage over Africa and to consider that it might possibly be one of the best ways to reach into rural areas, into areas that are so remote that terrestrial coverage will still take a good number of years to reach there. But not only that, mobile coverage is possibly already there, maybe on its way there. If it hasn't arrived yet, you know, it could possibly be deployed soon. As we know, you know, cell phone towers are being deployed daily all over the globe, particularly in Africa. There's a huge drive to increase 4G and 5G networks. It's what's happening now. But then we still have the data costs. How do we overcome the data costs? That is going to be a question that everybody is going to ask, because there is no way that we can actually get past that. And the only way, in my opinion, is if we got mobile operators to start working closely with broadcasters to offer streaming services to their subscribers and find alternate methods to generate revenue, such as ad insertions, which could assist in lowering data costs to a lot of its consumers. Now, we've seen that ad insertions have really taken quite a significant increase in a lot of our paid broadcasters' platforms. For them to monetize and actually create revenue, they have been able to give a lot of free content by using ad insertion and generate revenue by targeting ads into the market and basically deliver content at a zero rated cost, which has had quite a good effect on consumers, because they are, you know, everyone's quite happy to watch a 10 or 20-second ad at the beginning of the movie, and then you're getting the movie for free. You know, it just makes sense. The consumer is happy, the broadcaster is happy, the mobile operator is happy, because they are still getting the traction on their network, and possibly at a fraction of the cost that they would have paid, but they can introduce other revenue models to lower the data standards. Just touching on Liquid's terrestrial network, if you have a look at this map, you'll see that the terrestrial penetration in Africa that we have is pretty significant, and it basically touches in most of the countries within Africa. So this is great. Yes, we have data centers all over. We have our satellite teleports in most of the African countries. We're actually busy looking at building one in Nigeria at the moment as well. So we'll be able to offer uplink and downlink services out of there as well. And where we don't have our own, we partner with the satellite operators to use their platforms. So we have reach in all these countries. Yes, the major cities. Once again, going out into rural communities, the terrestrial network doesn't expand that far. Once you need to take fiber into rural areas, there's just so many considerations and behind the scenes and financial costs that need to happen, because if the fiber's in the city, you know, there's trenching that needs to happen. You need to involve contractors, you need to get permissions, you need to get local partners. And it's just a lengthy, very costly procedure. All of this can be eliminated to reach these rural areas by using the satellite networks and leveraging off the beautiful coverage that we have over the African continent. Satellite really is the way forward. So I'd like to thank you now all for allowing me to share my views, and I look forward to working with our partners to ensure that we reach even the most remote areas in Africa and make services affordable and available to everyone. Thank you.